Maralen Fae Ascendant is a kick-ass commander that explores some really cool design space. In Sultai colors, she wraps up two fan-favorite creature types in faeries and elves under a single deck, and makes you choose, do you go faeries or elves as a focus for the deck? Why not both? Maralen is even seeing some cEDH buzz as a food chain commander, with some infinite combos wrapped up in the 99 as well. But I want to take this back to basics. I want to take this back to a budget, build-your-own Precon deck for less than the manufacturer's suggested retail price on a Wizards-created Precon. Hey, let's talk about that for a second first. How about we start with an update on the build-your-own Precon format and a few questions for you, my lovely audience. Wizards has essentially abandoned what the original intent for Commander Precons was. They were used as an on-ramp product for new players to get into the format. They've said as much as well. They've even removed the language surrounding Precons from bracket definitions. This is because Precons are getting good. Across the last year, they've become better than we've ever seen them before. Design-wise, Wizards has even broken from its rules about infinite combos in Precons, ensuring just about half of all modern Precons have infinite combos of 3 to 4 cards at a time built into the 99. And as of Lorwyn Eclipsed, Precons are even more expensive, starting at $60 manufacturer's suggested retail price. So let me pose this to you. What do you think about changing the budget of Build Your Own Precons up just $5 additional from $45 to $50? Still less than the cost of a real Precon, but with the wiggle room to include some nicer cards. Also, what do you think about inserting the odd infinite combo into these Build Your Own Precons? I'd do a combo primer on it, of course, with suggestions to add or remove additional combos. Hit those comments right now and decide the direction of this series moving forward. But let's get back to Maralen Fae Ascendant. As a commander, Maralen gives us clear objectives. Pack your deck with elves and or faeries, and use that to steal spells from your opponent's decks. But be careful. Maralen's ability, granting you the option to cast an opponent's spell, obeys timing restrictions. That means if I flash in a Fairy Duelist on your turn, I can only cast instants or spells with flash. Don't go thinking you can cast that creature or artifact or sorcery. That is, unless you've given yourself the ability to cast spells with flash. Leyline of Anticipation, Valley Floodcaller, Vidalcan Orrery, all ways to get you access to those spells at instant speed. But, much like my Azula build, I'm notorious for insisting that those cards are traps, and you should just build your deck better. The one exception here being High Fae Trickster. It fits the theme of the deck, has flash itself, and triggers Maralen. If it weren't over $10 on its own, I would have put it in this list. Consider it the deck's first upgrade though. The goal of the brew I've put together is to make elves and fairies. Tokens, like with Elven Ambush, Sylvan Offering, or Stolen by the Fae, netting us big bursts of creatures for lots of milling and potential spells to cast from opponents, or by making gradually increasing numbers of tokens with Fairy Formation, Lizalana Huntmaster, or Elven Warmaster, getting us 2 triggers for the price of 1 with our commander. This can do everything from mill our opponents faster to just giving us more options. Their libraries are our toys. We can use spells like Notorious Throng to make a massive army of fairies all at once if we can get through for some damage and sometimes even an extra turn thanks to rogues like Fairy Duelist or Quickling. Not too often, but enough to be a real threat to opponents' libraries and lives. And spells like Windswift Slice act as removal and additional mill, all at instant speed, to nab us answers or just the coolest spell from among the milled cards. That's one of the best tricks that we can pull with this deck, flashing in a creature to respond to an opponent's turn or their threats. As Maralen lets us cast a single spell each turn, it means we can do it on opponents' turns, minding timing restrictions. So the more flash we have, the more likely we can hit instants from opponents. Glamour Grifter, Wildborn Preserver, and the new Glenelendra Guardian are just some of the examples of creatures we can flash in to steal cards, even just to mess with an opponent's scry or surveil, and to make sure that we have a ready attacker the next turn. We also have Scuttling Sentinel, Selfless Safe Right, or Fade Bloom Trick, all acting as ways to protect us or our board in a pinch, creating surprise blockers or blanking targeted removal, or even a board wipe. One of the most difficult parts of building this was balancing the two creature types. Do we lean into elf synergies with their many lords like Elven Archdruid, Imperious Perfect, or the new Morkant's Loyalist? 50% of our deck is elves after all. Or do we lean more into fairy synergies like on Obira, Tegwill, or Nimrus, giving us benefits when our fairies enter the battlefield or when we use one of the many ones we have with Flash? Will we have enough elves to reliably behold to Champion of the Perfect? Or to draw enough cards from a Miara? Or return with a Wirewood Symbiote? The answer is yes to everything. The deck is balanced around both creature types, and there are enough synergies to use all of them all the time. I have packed the deck with combat-based card draw like Bident of Thassa, the Indomitable, and Coastal Piracy, because we'll be looting our opponent's libraries with our tiny flyers while clogging up the ground with elves. Even Edric, Spymaster of Trest, makes an appearance in the 99. As he's an elf, he's also an amazing source of card draw and an amazing way to convince your opponents to attack anyone but you. Also, with so many Enters effects in the 99, Panharmonicon is right at home, giving us extra value off of everything we have, including our commander. With reach like Prowess of the Fair and extra tokens from Feywild Visitor, you'll be able to exile 6, 8, 10 cards from an opponent on each of your turns, and another 2 to 4 cards on each of their turns. Which is where I want to get into something different with this build your own precon. Combos. Maralen is a win con in and of herself. If you can have her enter infinitely, or any elf or fairy really, you can just exile your opponent's libraries. Which is why she makes for a fine food chain commander at higher power levels. Make infinite mana of each color with a Misthollow Griffin or an Eternal Scourge, and recast Maralen infinitely to exile your opponent's libraries. Sounds easy, right? Well, there's more. And there's more that doesn't hinge on an expensive combo enchantment and cEDH vibes. And for the first time in my years-long history of making these brews, I've included one of these infinite combos in this list. And it's a relatively simple one too. Cloud of Faeries plus Deadeye Navigator. Yay, we broke Deadeye Navigator! I heard you all scrambling to the comments to be snarky, but I got you first. This combo is dead simple. With Maralen in play, you soul bond the fairies to Deadeye and start blinking the Cloud of Faeries for 2 mana. It enters, untaps 2 mana, giving you the mana to infinitely blink the fairy, and thanks to your commander, exile each of your opponent's libraries. It's a 2.5 card combo, it's easily disruptible, and it needs you to cast a 6 mana creature, then also have 2 mana to activate it. In my opinion, this is a totally fair combo to include in a brew, and a totally fair way to end a totally fair game of Magic. But that's not all. I also want to highlight a few other combos that can definitely be considered for the upgrade. You can now find all of my upgrade recommendations under the Considering section in the MOXFIELD deck list. Easy to find and add on your own. Let's start with the first combo upgrade. I have Presence of Gond in the 99 of this list because it lets you tap a creature to make an elf, a great way to trigger your elf-related effects on an opponent's turn. But when you add in everyone's favorite love-to-hate combo piece, Intruder Alarm, you go, say it with me, infinite. That means with Maralen out, you exile all of your opponent's libraries with Elf Enters triggers. It's a good upgrade. Axe Miara Thorn of the Glade if you want to find some room for this combo. Then, I have Wirewood Symbiote in the base list. Sure, currently it's a good way to save an elf from removal or untap a Priest of Titania once in a while, and it lets you recast that elf sometimes at instant speed. But did you know that if we make the symbiote itself an elf, like with Leyline of Transformation, or an Arcane Adaptation, or with Maskwood Nexus, we then could have the symbiote return itself to our hand and untap any mana dork we control, like an Elvish Mystic, Llanowar Elves, or at this point a Maraleaf Pixie. We then recast the symbiote over and over again. Since it's an elf, this makes a Maralen go, come on, you know this tune, infinite. And again, you exile each opponent's library and win the game. I'd recommend only one of these effects in your deck at a time if you're playing at lower brackets. And if you're putting one in, then cut your smaller fairies and go a little harder on the elves. Lastly, in a similar vein, Quirion Ranger is in the base list. It lets us return a forest to our hand to untap a creature. And very similarly, we have to ask ourselves, what if Quirion Ranger is a forest? Enter Ashaya. Turning all of our creatures into forests means the Ranger can return itself to our hand, untapping the same mana dorks I mentioned and recasting the Quirion Ranger over and over. Once again, this goes, say it with me one last time, infinite. To make room for Ashaya, I'd remove Nimrus, since you're going harder on the combo and less on the long-term value play. You can see how this deck and a few tight upgrades can really turn into a layered combo machine, right? If you're looking to skip the infinite combos, but still up the power level, adding in a few more of the decent flash fairies like Fairy Mastermind, Brazen Borrower, or Vendilion Click would give you a bit more reach and versatility on other players' turns. And a Beast Whisperer is just outside of the budget for this deck right now, but with a creature-heavy brew, especially with a lower curve like this one, it's worthwhile to include in order to chain together a few creature casts in a single turn. Run to those comments right now, folks, and tell me what you think about the future of Build Your Own Precons, about the changes to handling the upgrade, and what you think of this Maralen list. I would love to see your lists. Be sure to share them in the comments. And don't leave without checking out my sponsors like Card Conduit. They are hands down the easiest way to sell your individual Magic cards without the hassle of traditional buy listing. They'll get you top dollar while handling all of the heavy lifting, from sorting to grading to optimizing your price across a huge network of vendors. And they'll give you cold hard cash for it. You can use the promo code MECHANIC right now for 10% off of all fees. And if you want to pick up the cards for this list, make sure to go check out Card Trader. Use my promo code MECHANIC right now for 5% off your order from any TCG. Card Trader's zero system means you can get cards from all over the world with only one shipping fee. Save money and time today. Lastly, you can check out all of my decks on MOXFIELD. MOXFIELD is the best deck building platform in the world and makes it easy to build decks and search for specific cards with their powerful tools. Have you checked out their drag and drop feature yet? It's revolutionary. Be sure to check out my brews and follow my profile there right now. If you were inspired to brew today, you have to hit that subscribe button. Check out this other deck on my channel right now for more sweet tech. And as always, folks, good luck and have fun.